Ireland had become a grim battleground, a scene of guerrilla warfare between two increasingly ruthless bands of armed men, the Tans and the IRA.
The Black and Tans were rather welcomed by us because they had more liberty than we had, you see. We were in the position of the ordinary British soldier who must not retaliate. The Black and Tans did retaliate and, in fact, went too far.
The Black and Tans came into the picture because the regular army were too decent to do the job. And this is a fact. The regular army were very, very much liked. A lot of them married and stayed there.
The ordinary poor British Tommy was a decent fella. We had very little grudge against him. We didn't want to hurt him at all. It was the intelligence officers, the Black and Tans, the deliberately organised ruffians that we were up against.
Burning, by way of reprisal, became a standard police reaction. The burning of farms, the burning of towns. Cooperative creameries were burned as a means of hitting through their jobs more people than could be burned out of a house. As an Irish newspaper put it, when they threw petrol on a Sinn Féiner's house, they were merely pouring paraffin on the flames of Irish nationality.
They were charming. They were always drunk, of course. And their great delight was to roar up and down the road in their big open army trucks, letting off rounds of blank ammunition to any woman they saw by herself.
The war was in the streets of Dublin too. Roundups and searches for arms as whole areas of the city were cordoned off. Tempers frayed, and it became easier and easier, as Collins had calculated, for the Irish people to see this as a war against an England denying independence. Gifted with great powers of organisation, Collins not only successfully raised and administered a loan of over £4 million in today's money, but was systematically penetrating the British intelligence system in Ireland. Early in 1920, Collins gave orders for the shooting of a detective named Barton. This was the work of Collins's Dublin squad, in which he took an almost fatherly interest. One member of that squad was Vinnie Byrne.
Collins used to come down maybe twice a week. He was the only man that ever came near us, and it was a great boost to us that if he could ramble around the city, come into the dump and give us some kind of a heart, well, it was worth going on with, you know. He come in and two hands stuck in his trousers pockets, and how ye going on, lads? Oh, not bad, Michael. Yeah. Well, God be with you now, and go on with the good work.
This is Michael Collins's plan for a terrible day in November 1920, to be known as Bloody Sunday. Collins had located the hideouts of a number of undercover British intelligence officers in Dublin, some of them actually posing as Sinn Féin supporters. Collins gave orders for them all to be shot in their houses individually by IRA men at 9 o'clock that Sunday morning.
And I had 8 men with me. And we agreed that we'd meet outside St. Andrew's Church in Westland Row at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning. Some of us got mass that morning there. And we proceeded along to the house. Knocked at the door. The servant opened the door. And I said, I want to see Captain Bennett or Lieutenant Ames. Oh, she says, we're in bed. And she went to close the door, and I just put my foot in. So it's all right, so I'm a friend of theirs. And I went through the folding doors. And as I went through the folding doors, your man went for his pillow. He had a 45 Colt automatic under the pillow, because there was 5 or 6 guns covered in them. So I said to him, well, come on, get out. And he went down to Captain or Lieutenant Ames's room. put the tube up against the wall. It said, "The Lord have mercy on your souls." They plugged the two of them.
"14 British officers were shot altogether that Sunday morning, but the day was still young. There was to be an important football match at Croke Park that afternoon.
Soldiers, black and tans, I can't really say which, appeared on the surrounding walls and started firing into the crowd.
A Tipperary player was one of the 12 killed. In further reprisal for that morning's killing, 2 senior IRA men and an innocent Sinn Féin supporter from County Clare, who'd been arrested the night before, were murdered by the police in the guardroom of Dublin Castle. McKee, Clancy, and the innocent Clune. By December 1920, there were some 700 of the dreaded auxiliaries in Ireland. Their routine patrols were ambushed from time to time, and after one such ambush, a reprisal was carried out on a hitherto unprecedented scale against the centre of the city of Cork.
He started in revenge for the casualties we'd received in the ambush. We had 11 casualties there when we were ambushed. They first busted into 1 or 2 pubs and out themselves. Proceeded to set fire and loot. And they prevented the fire brigade putting out the fires. Well, there was a certain tough gang in the K Company. They were the instigators of this, including the commanding officer. And they were the people who did a lot of the looting. About 25 of these people were responsible for most of the damage done in Cork.
An official British inquiry into the event was never made public. Disgust and embarrassment at this sort of thing was mounting in England. The IRA had by now developed armed flying columns of between 20 and 30 men who lived on the countryside, emerged from it to ambush Crown forces when informed of a suitable target, and melted back into it again. Elusive, unpredictable, and tough.
The organisation was good, the morale was good, but we had no arms. We had no ammunition particularly. And we had a variety of weapons. We had weapons of all kinds, and it was very hard to get ammunition for the most of them.
When you fired 6 rounds of ammunition, it was very hard to get another refill for a revolver.
Eamon de Valera, now Ireland's political leader, responded to the approaches of the equally exhausted British that he was ready to talk about a political solution if a truce were called. On the 9th of July 1921, both sides came to the Dublin Mansion House, escorted by IRA men, among them de Valera and the Mayor of Dublin. Among the British was the Commander-in-Chief in Ireland, General Macready. Ireland prayed for peace. And on the 11th of July, a truce was signed. The horror in which Ireland had lived for 2.5 years was suddenly over. But a political solution to satisfy both Britain and Ireland, including the IRA, would be much harder to come by, as no one realised more acutely than the first Irish leader to go to see the British government, Eamon de Valera. By late 1920, Ireland had become a grim battleground, a scene of guerrilla warfare between 2 increasingly ruthless bands of armed men, the Tans and the